Hi, everyone. I can hope, first of all, that you can hear me and see me. If not, then please, whoever is on the team at the backup in the technical side, please let me know. You never know with these online things. So a very warm welcome to everyone. And I'm excited to see the Deutsche Börse already like offline at the event. A couple of 2 days ago, we were still like discussing everything online. And also welcome from the Bulgarian Stock Exchange online. So offline, as I said, we will see Oliver Marr, Deutsche Börse Global Sales Manager, Falco Weinert, Deutsche Börse Senior Manager of Business Development, and then from the Bulgarian Stock Exchange, we have Petar Kemelov, Director of Corporate Development, and Konstantin Dimitrov, Chief Expert Corporate Development. So guys, very warm welcome. A bit about myself. So as I've been also already introduced, Olivia Exon. I'm the Program Manager of Startup Campus London, which is an international startup accelerator operating in Budapest, Berlin, and London. And I don't want to steal more time from the panel from the panelists. So Oliver, would you please introduce yourself in a few words?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Olivia. My name is Oliver. I'm working for the Deutsche Börse, apparently. Deutsche Börse is one of the largest capital markets infrastructure providers in the world. Moreover, we also have our own corporate venture capital unit. And in addition, we do also operate a pre-IPO network called the Deutsche Börse Venture Network. And within this, I am, so to say, the first touch point for our national, international startup and growth companies, investors, and other stakeholders within the capital markets. My role is, for example, to support startups on their way towards the capital markets and also to support them within their fundraising processes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Falco, could you continue, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Olivia. Thanks, Oliver. So, my name is Falco Weinert. I'm working for Deutsche Börse as well. In the last 8 years, I was responsible for the IPO business at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. And currently, I'm working from our Berlin office. So I'm working in our venture network unit right now. That's our, like Oliver said, that's our program for young aspiring startups, and we want to connect them with venture capital and private equity investors.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Falco. Petar, would you like to continue, please?
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be a part of that great event. My name is Petar, Director Corporate Development at the Bulgarian Stock Exchange. Along with our regular activities as a stock exchange, together with my colleague Konstantin, we are the creators of the Pre-IPO accelerator program of the Bulgarian Stock Exchange. The first edition of the program started some 1 year ago. We at the stock exchange put significant effort in the pre-IPO area because, as we all know, the local ecosystem is very important for it to have both private funds through venture capital, private equity, and so on, and the public funds by the stock exchange working together. And it's even more important for a small ecosystem like Bulgaria. In addition, we are very happy that some months ago we entered into a partnership with Deutsche Börse Venture Network. That is why we and the local companies from Bulgaria have more opportunities to scale up and develop.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And Konstantin, could you please just finish the introduction?
Thank you, Olivia. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us at this event. My name is Konstantin Dimitrov. Me and Peter, we are the R&D unit of the Bulgarian Stock Exchange. And as he said, we were responsible for the launch of this pre-IPO accelerator of our exchange, as well as any new project of the BSC. So I won't waste any more time, and thank you, and let's go on with the discussion.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. So today's topic is, what are the 3 key pillars to raise capital pre-IPO? And this question is, at one point it's a bit specific, at the other it's also quite general. But what I think is very exciting about this panel is that we have Bulgaria and Germany, 2 very, very different ecosystems. And this is also something that me as a moderator, I'm looking forward to in the discussions, to see what are the differences between the 2 ecosystems. And obviously there is a gap, and also like what are the efforts and ways to improve this gap overall. In like close the gap, sorry. So my first question would be is if you could introduce your ecosystem so that we can actually see the differences. How is the German ecosystem, how you support local companies pre-IPO, and then after the German ecosystem, if we could continue with the Bulgarian ecosystem. How do you support your companies there? And who better to ask if than Petar and Konstantin, the ones who actually started this whole accelerator. So, but yeah, as I said, let's start with the German side. So Oliver or Falco, who wants to start?
Yeah, so maybe I want to start with some numbers for you, because we as Deutsche Börse are running the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, and if we have a look on this year's IPO market, it was quite strong from our point of view. So we had around 20 listing or IPOs in this year. In the last year, we had a little bit more than 10 listings or IPOs, so we nearly doubled the number. That's quite great, and I think in general worldwide, the number of listings is better than the years before. On the other hand side, what we can see, and that's the same like in the last years, is that if you are a startup and you are on a very early stage, it's easy, in most cases, easy to find capital. Also, if you have a proven track record, if you are on a very late stage, then it's easy to find the capital you need. But there's a gap in between, and that's a big problem that what we can see for companies. That's the reason why we started the initiative Venture Network, to bring together the startups with venture capital, with private equity investors. I don't know, Oliver, maybe you want to add some words about Venture Network?
And especially when we're looking at the early stages, there is enough money in Germany, right? We have some debt funds, we have enough state funds giving capital to startups and support them on their way towards the Series A and B. But when it comes to later financing rounds and bigger rounds, we heavily really rely, and I guess that's the same as in other ecosystems here in Europe, we heavily rely on international capital. So this is why we as Deutsche Börse bring together our market participants like investors from all over the world to give them access to not only national deal flow, but also international deal flow from our startups. And this is also why we thought that startups do not only need access towards capital, but also access towards other market participants, right? When it also becomes towards exit opportunities, exit perspectives, like hopefully an IPO one day, you also need access to investment banks, for example. And then you also need some know-how, right? You must know when to take the right decisions and what are the right decisions. And this is why we also opened a training program together with the University of Munich to give startups know-how in financial growth, manager growth, and capital market readiness. And last but not least, there is the network itself. And this is why we also opened up our network towards the Bulgarian stock exchange, because, as I said before, we heavily rely on not only international capital, but also access towards international and pan-European ecosystems. And these 3 cornerstones are, from our perspective, the most important things for startups to grow successful and sustainable.
So could you just please summarize what are the 3 cornerstones again?
Yeah, the cornerstones are capital, network, and skill, as we call them. Yeah.
Okay, capital, network, and scale. Thank you. So no, it's very interesting what you're saying, because I mentioned myself the regional difference between, let's say, for example, Bulgaria and Germany, but you also said that within Germany there is also a gap in terms of available finance. So going to the Bulgarian side, could you introduce first, like again, like how you're supporting companies, how is the ecosystem looking like, and whether you are experiencing similar kind of issues as in Germany, or in a different way, perhaps?
Yeah, thanks for that. I will start with some overview. The startup ecosystem in Bulgaria is growing quite rapidly over the last few years. We have something like 1,000 startup companies in Bulgaria. As our colleagues from Germany said, we have the same funding gap here in Bulgaria, because the main funding comes from around 15 local VC funds that operate mainly in seed and early stage financing, and their tickets are usually limited to 2 or 3 million euro. So we have that gap when it comes to larger financing rounds in Bulgaria. Perhaps it's important to see Bulgaria as a part of the bigger picture, consisting of southeastern, central, and southeastern Europe. And as we see from the latest reports, the startup ecosystem and the funding in the region is booming in 2021. The total funding for the region is more than 4 billion euro. It's nearly 2.3 times larger than the same period in 2020. And the same comes with the funding in Bulgaria. During 2021, the funding here is almost 3 times bigger than last year. But again, most of the deals are related to seed and early stage, and we have maybe our biggest rounds in that year are related to the local fintech company Payhawk and GTM Hub, respectively, Series A and B. Concerning our support to the local system, I have mentioned our pre-IPO accelerator, but perhaps my colleague Konstantin will add more on that matter.
Of course. Thank you, Peter. Well, as we already told, we created this program last year, basically on the same principles of the ones that colleagues from Deutsche Börse Venture Network mentioned regarding their platform. This initiative was a partnership between the Bulgarian Stock Exchange, our local fund of funds, which distributes the EU funds in the country, the Bulgarian Development Bank, and the local association of the Bulgarian VCs, as well as the BESCO, which is our startup association. So these very important institutions joined their forces mainly to educate, to give knowledge to the companies. Basically, the program consists of tracking down interesting, innovative companies that show substantial growth potential. So we choose these companies. This is the difference between us and the Deutsche Börse Venture Network, where companies come to the network. And along the year, we have this training program where we educate the companies on the main points and stages of funding and available opportunities here in Bulgaria. And we give them opportunity to meet already successful companies which have reached our public markets, who can share their experience along the way, all the way from creating their business to becoming a public company. Basically, that's it. And what can I add? I don't know. Maybe
we'll find out on the way when we are continuing this discussion. No, thank you very much, Konstantin. I think it's very interesting what both sides were saying. And I think it's also kind of safe to say that the three key pillars actually answering the question of this panel of raising pre-IPO and what we also discussed when we were preparing for this whole panel is skills, network, and funding. And we mentioned a few things, that there's lack of enough proper funding, for example, in Germany, also in Bulgaria, it's growing, but still way more room to grow. Also the education, so the skills and the network is also something to improve, but still why do you think what are the main reasons? And if you could give some examples as well, why are they way less companies going public in the CEE region, so the Central and Eastern European region, than in Western Europe, for example? Like, what do you think are the main reasons for this, and what kind of ways could you improve this? But first, let's focus just on the fact, what do you think are the main reasons? And perhaps let's stay with Bulgaria right now. I don't know, Petar or Konstantin, who wants to take this question.
Okay, thank you, Olivia. You're quite right. The CEE stock exchanges, the stock exchanges from the region, for sure, are not the preferred option for startups and scale-ups when it comes to funding or exit here. Why? It's in my opinion, the main obstacles are connected with the size of our stock exchanges on one side and the liquidity on the other side. In other words, the possible funding that can be raised and the available network that we as exchanges have in the region, mainly investors, infrastructure, are still limited. Of course, there are some regional differences, and for sure, Poland, for example, is a well-developed capital market. Also, I can mention the Czech Republic, Hungary, but for most of the stock exchanges in the region, funding and network and infrastructure are a part of that problem. On the other side, we all know that the startups from the region think globally from day one. They scale up and develop, relying not only on their home market, but they try to expand globally. And at a certain level, when they are big enough, their products and services are widely known. And for example, if they try to raise more than 100 million, for example, or they want an exit through the stock exchange, it's more effective to do it on a well-developed market in the USA or Western Europe, of course, because they can have a better valuation on one side, and also they have a better access to a wider investor base. So I can say that the same funding problem is applicable both to the pre-IPO segment in Central and Southeastern Europe, and also on the stock exchange level, it's hardly possible in a country like Bulgaria to make such a big financing round as a startup. On second maybe the network and infrastructure, for sure. Again, it's an important problem both on the two sides, pre-IPO and IPO. Concerning the stock exchange business, the infrastructure is very important. Different exchanges act differently. For example, the case with Bulgaria, we have a long-term relationship with our colleagues from Deutsche Börse, and we use the trading platform etc. T7. But speaking on the pre-IPO side, the network in Bulgaria for sure developed quite well in recent years, adding accelerator program, adding incubators, co-working spaces, but for sure much more has to be done, not only in Bulgaria but in the whole region. And lastly, the third pillar, skills. If we talk about the pre-IPO area, we all know that the whole region there is abundance of IT talent. The same is the case with Bulgaria. But of course, we all know that when you have a successful startup, also many other skills are important, like business development, sales, marketing, legal, and so on. So for sure, startups from the region need to spend additional time on some professional training on these areas. So that's my point on that.
Thank you very much, Petar. You gave quite a good overall answer to my question. Konstantin, is there anything that you would add to Petar's words?
Of course, Petar was very, very exhaustive with describing the scene. I would only add that, in my personal opinion, there is a certain problem with the mindset of the founders of companies that are not public, also with their investors on the pre-IPO level. Because if you take US, for example, going public is in their agenda at the very beginning of starting their business. This thing is still something that we don't see in our region, and I would say not so much in Western Europe as well. So this comes with two of the already mentioned and very important pillars, the skills and networking, which are something that putting efforts into these two pillars would be something that would outcome as a change in the mindset of the whole landscape of all stakeholders here.
No, thank you very much. And going back to the main stage now, to the German side. First of all, what is your take on this question that I asked at the beginning of why is there this difference? Do you see it the same way? And what do you think are the main reasons from a German perspective? Like, what is the main reason why not as many companies go public in Central and Eastern Europe, and perhaps also in general in Europe, what Konstantin mentioned as well? And then if you could also just basically mention of ways how you think this gap between Central and Eastern Europe and Western Europe could be closed in terms of how many companies go public.
Yeah. So from my point of view, Konstantin and Petar mentioned a lot of very important points. Yeah. So only some words to add. So maybe three more things to add. First of all, what we can see is that there's a strong sector focus in the CE region. So if you have a look on the CE region in this year, more than 50% of the venture capital investments were investments into tech companies. So if you are a tech company, that's a perfect fit and maybe a benefit for you. On the other hand side, in the DACH region, so Germany, Switzerland, Austria, we have a little bit more than 30% of the we see investments into tech companies. means maybe it could be beneficial for you as a company if you are not in the tech sector to search your investors also abroad or also in whole Europe and not only in your region. Second thing is the pre-money valuation. I think that's an important point for all companies, and the thing is that in the CE region, the average pre-money valuation in 2021 is a little bit below 8 million euros, I think. In the DACH region, we have a little bit more than 11 million euros. The third thing is the venture capital invested in general, in sum. So in 2021, we have around 4 billion of VC investments in the DACH region. We have below 400 million, or I think it's around 350 million in the CE region. So it seems that there's easy access to more money in more sectors with a higher valuation when you have a look outside your own region. And of course, that could be attractive for companies to look Europe-wide or to look abroad. And that's I think these are important points. And if you have a look on later stages, yeah. So what we have seen is that in the last 20 years for the VC fundings of the European unicorns, we have seen that I think around 60% of the investments were backed by non-European funds. Yeah. So the bigger the company, the more important it is to look very international, and I think that's an important point to understand. And it's also important on the other hand side to see that you don't have to maybe to have your headquarter or whatever. Yeah, but I think to think international, it's important when you are looking for investors. So maybe Oliver, something to add. So.
Maybe some statistics. Statistics say that on average, 90% of companies go public in the domestic capital market, right? So this is pure statistics. Also, some companies then decide to do also dual listing on a foreign exchange, but most companies definitely say, I want to go public within my home market because they are my customers, they are my people. My headquarter, for example, maybe the majority of my investors, but I will definitely go to my home market when I go public because I do this one time and then that's it. What we see now is, to be honest and to be open, we are here in a small round, I guess. We now see some demand coming from the CE region, right? Companies that are already public on whatever kind of stock exchange in the CE, they now contact us or approach us with regards to do a dual listing on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, right? Because they, for example, when it comes to industries that prospered during the lockdowns, for example, gaming, e-commerce, food delivery, the valuations are rising. Companies seek more money, they seek more capital, and more investor awareness and more consumer awareness, and these could also be reasons for CE companies that are already listed to contact, for example, us as Deutsche Börse or whatever kind of Dachbörse to go for a dual listing in continental Europe, right? And this is what we do see now. Some trends. Yeah, it's from my side.
We could totally confirm that. We also see that trend on our market, interest towards dual listings, especially on Deutsche Börse, or exclusively on Deutsche Börse, I would say.
That's very interesting, and thank you also very much for Oliver and Falco for the information. Now going on to like how to close this gap, because I know that there's also collaboration between the Bulgarian Stock Exchange and the Deutsche Börse, and you also mentioned like these dual listings, etc. Could you touch upon that a bit and explain and the audience how you collaborate, basically? I don't know, perhaps if we want to stick now with the German side, if you want to start.
Yeah, as we stated before, we opened up our network towards later stage Bulgarian companies, pre-IPO companies, just to bring them together with our network, with investors in our network, national, international investors. We give later stage or even pre-IPO Bulgarian companies the chance to bring them together, for example, with investment banks in Frankfurt, right? We offer so-called banking roadshows for companies to challenge their potential IPO and equity story with the banks, and or we offer workshops, dedicated workshops for companies, and educate them towards the capital markets and all these things. And now the ways are very short between our two organizations, and if Peter or Konstantin have one company in mind and say, this could be a perfect fit for your venture network or for your capital markets, this is the address, go ahead, talk with them. And also vice versa, right? If we have a company or even an investor who wants to know more about the Bulgarian ecosystem or even the CEO ecosystem, we have two experts to whom we can directly refer and can help the investor or company with this. So within our collaboration, yeah, we also had some events together, for example, and share information between each other. And this is also lots of fun because from our point of view, we are learning a lot about your ecosystem, the trends you have, and all these things. Yeah, and hopefully we see some successes in the near future. I'm really confident.
Any comments on that from the Bulgarian side?
Yeah, sure. In our view, for sure, our partnership addresses most of the obstacles that we mentioned earlier, either the funding gap problem or the expanding the networks and the skills of the local companies. For sure, the members from Bulgaria can become a part of a pan-European system for growth, which means more visibility for them, valuable contacts with investors and other partners, access to events, high quality training, as our colleagues from Germany mentioned. So we strongly are trying to promote that opportunity to our local ecosystem, and we are sure that in the next months we will have several companies from our pre-IPO accelerator that will join the network of Deutsche Börse.
Thank you very much. And just like final question on this topic, and then we move slightly to a different side of the question. Where do you see, like, for example, the CE region in 10 years, Petar or Konstantin? Like, comparison to where we are right now, like, where do you think it's going to be?
Maybe again some words from me. As we know, currently we have something like 34 unicorns from Southeastern Europe. As far as I can remember, we have something like 16 unicorns only this year and in 2020, and more than 80 companies that are rising stars and future unicorns. So I think that if the region keeps developing with the rhythm that we have now, in 10 years we'll have more unicorns and more companies that are listed on developed markets, and hopefully on some of the big markets from Central and Southeastern Europe.
Thank you. We have roughly like 8 minutes left until the end of this panel discussion. So let's continue with the next question. So what is the right time for a company to consider going public? And is there actually do you think there's a difference depending on where you are located? What would you say? Maybe let's continue now with Oliver and Falco. What do you think?
So what first comes to my mind is that it is a very individual thing. Yeah, so you have you should have a look on the company, also on the sector, on the valuation, on what exactly is the business case, what is the company doing. So you can say it in general. So maybe just one number as a small indicator. We have 3 segments for the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, and one segment is especially for small and medium-sized companies. It's called Scale, and the market cap and average, I think it's currently around 150 million euro. So there's only one number. So I think the smallest companies are around 10 million. The biggest ones are around 1 billion. So it's really hard to say. But what helps is to speak really early with your with your banks, with investors, with maybe us as Deutsche Börse to better understand if it makes sense to think about an IPO or not. And of course, we also know that an IPO is only one exit option, and we won't tell any company, please do an IPO. Yes, you have to speak really openly about the perfect exit option for you.
Mm. And with regards to the perfect timing, there is no perfect timing, right? It's like looking into the crystal ball. The capital markets are so globally, they are so interlinked with each other. There's so much risk all over the world, like interest rates, inflation, pandemics, whatever. So there is no real IPO window. There are some theoretically IPO windows, right? For example, before the great holidays in summer, right? There is a typical IPO window where we say that an IPO could maybe successful, but at the end it depends, right, on your company and on your investors. And normally, as we stated before, an IPO is not one event itself. Normally, companies, they prepare 2 years before an IPO, right, with all the processes, with all the regulatory stuff, with all the talent hiring, with all the information, with all the education and so on. If I would do an IPO, I would definitely go for dual or at least multi-track, right? Because it can happen that the IPO will not take place, but I have plan B or C, and then say, maybe I wait, or I do a private placement before, or I even sell the whole thing to a private equity investor, and then that's it, right? We are no advisors. We are not paid as advisors. But at the end, as Falco just said, it helps if you inform yourself as early as you can, together with your investors, with your partners. Ask as many banks as you can to get a real fundamental and an objective opinion from them. And at least speak to us, right? Because we do operate the markets, and we have something like an opinion regarding this.
Thank you. We only have like 3.5 minutes left, roughly. So, Petar, would you add or consent in any like a brief comment to what Oliver and Falco just said?
Just a brief comment from my side. For sure, as our colleagues from Germany said, I can add only that maybe it's usually you go public after you have successfully raised several times, perhaps Series B and beyond. So after that comes the decision for an IPO. And another point, the segment for SMEs is very important also for the Bulgarian Stock Exchange, because there the obligations of companies are lower, and this segment on our exchange name Beam is also very successful, and we had several oversubscribed IPOs this year, and also 3 or 4 in the pipeline till the end of that year. That's from my side.
Konstantin, would you add anything? Or sorry, Oliver, Konstantin, anything?
Konstantin?
From my side, no. I
Okay,
think,
Oliver, sorry.
Yeah, just to add, the investor sentiment is still very high, right? Valuations are rising. The IPO momentum is great. So if you think of an IPO, do it now, right? The economic forecasts are getting better. So I think all the external factors are speaking for the capital markets, naturally.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes left. So my last question is, and then we have to wrap up. What are pre-IPO investors looking for? So what are the 2 top things? What would you say? I don't know who wants to go first with answering this question. So what are the pre-IPO investors looking for? Oliver or Falco, do you want to start? Top 2 things.
I think one important thing for them is a proven business model, but mostly it's also the problem, because if you are a very early stage startup and you don't have a proven business model, so how to attract investors? But I think that's one of the most important points for most of the investors we are speaking with.
Yeah, most of them are looking, as you just said, also fair valuation, right, for their assets, and also the management team, right? The investors do not only invest in products and companies, they invest in you as a founder and the entrepreneur, and hopefully the manager also after IPO, and that's it, right? Yeah.
Petar, Konstantin, what do you think?
I can add for sure strong growth opportunities related to the company, a product with attractive market size, for example, of course, proven success rate. These are the main things that I can add.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for being with us today. We reached the end of our panel discussion. Petar, Konstantin, Oliver, and Falco, thank you very much for being here and for giving very good insights. Also, a huge thank you to Wolf Summit for organizing this and for inviting us to be there, and huge shout out to the team who is organizing this in the background. Thank you very much for all the technical support that you're providing. And also thank you for having me for the second time. I was there in 2019 also chairing a panel, at that point offline, this point online, hopefully next time again offline. Thank you very much for everyone. If you have any questions, Oliver and Falco is there, so you can ask them on offline at the event, or you can also reach out to us on LinkedIn. So thank you very much and have a nice day.